This is the Galactic Emperor of the Universe. I'm here to tell you all to subscribe to UnrealEntGaming and remember to turn on notifications. You will be the first to know all about the latest Dragon Ball news and information.
Oh, did you say UnrealEntGaming? Oh, I love his channel.
God damn it, Zelbon, stop rubbing your nipples and get back to bed!
Will Frieza's golden form give him trouble in the Tournament of Power? What's going on, Dragon Ball fans? Welcome to another Dragon Ball Super discussion video, where today I am joined by EmoshIsLive as we talk about Frieza in the upcoming Tournament of Power and seeing what could happen to his body now that he's dead, and if his golden form is going to have an effect on his performance. And for a disclaimer, guys, I do want to say that this video is being recorded prior to Dragon Ball Super episode 96 details being revealed, so we are only going based off of what we saw in Dragon Ball Super episode 94 and only going to theorize and share our thoughts as to what we think could happen in the upcoming battle involving Frieza. So be sure to go on ahead and listen in on the entire video to have a better understanding, as we would like to hear your thoughts down below after the video is over. So Emosh, welcome back to another Dragon Ball Super discussion video. I wanted to talk to you about Frieza because off camera we spoke briefly about Frieza and his golden form, and even on your live stream we spoke about the potential in the usage of Frieza's golden form having to have a huge effect on his body. And what I wanted to get your thoughts on are, do you think that Frieza's golden form is going to have sort of a similar effect onto his body, just as Super Saiyan 3 Goku did back in Dragon Ball Z, with Frieza having to run out of time possibly, or even maybe getting tired enough to the point where he can't perform properly in the upcoming Tournament of Power? So do you think that maybe with his golden form having to wear his body down, that may spell disaster and or trouble for Frieza in the Tournament of Power?
I feel like if they take that route, that's only because they're trying to kind of nerf Frieza so that way he matches with Frost. I think that's probably the only explanation as to why they would do something like that, because otherwise you would want to see Frieza 100%. Right. It's good for marketing, it's good for the fan service, it's good for practically everything you could possibly think of. But it's bad for a potential matchup that fans will, are looking forward to seeing, that being Frieza versus Frost. Frost does not have this form, and some people will be like, well, you don't even know if he got another form. Remember, he made Hit take his attack seriously just recently, but that's not enough for you to justify, yourself transforming. And like Artemis said one time, I think, he said that if this was the case and he was aware that someone like Hit was after him and he came face to face against someone like Hit, why didn't Frost just, showcase this new transformation? If that was the case then and there, especially if your life was on the line, that would have been the most key and prime moment to do that.
Right.
And that's
right.
Those are the words that tell Artemis himself. I'm pretty sure it was him that said that. So, it's same rules apply. So because of that, technically they could just ass pull it and give him another form and without an explanation. They don't really have to tell us why or how he got it. But because they're trying to give like Frieza this kind of like this market value, this kind of like advertising or whatever, I feel like that would be the only explanation to explain why Golden Frieza would not, be something to see for a long time in the Tournament of Power.
Now somebody might, or at least some people may say, well, Emosh, what do you mean? Like, what do you mean by when you say that they're going to have to nerf Frieza down in order to have someone like Frost be able to compete against Frieza? To some people who don't know, I think it's safe to assume that Frieza, even in his final form and or golden form, would be enough to, I think, combat and take down Frost in the form of combat. I think that Frieza, in my opinion, guys, stomps Frost out. But however, to make the fight seem a bit more even, I guess that to a degree they might do, something to where Golden Frieza can no longer sustain that kind of power for long, therefore reverting back to his final form, which gives Frost a chance to having to fight a tired out Frieza. But I wanted to ask you, similar to Super Saiyan 3 Goku back in Dragon Ball Z, when he was brought back for only a day and he had 24 hours, and what happened during that sequence was when he fought against Buu, he used Super Saiyan 3 and it burned out the remaining time that he had to be on Earth. And even the second time he pulled out Super Saiyan 3 to pretty much showcase that to Goten and Trunks, he burned right through his time and he had to go back. So do you think something similar may occur to where Frieza, now that we know that what's going to happen in Dragon Ball Super episode 95 and Golden Frieza having to battle against the assassins, do you think that the golden powers that he has now is going to wear off on him, or do you think that maybe we might see Golden Frieza actually sustain that kind of power for long and having him battle against the other universes in the Tournament of Power?
That all depends on whether or not they even forgot about that concept with the whole thing with Super Saiyan 3 Goku. And that's, if they forgot about that, Akira, he has a tendency to forget things. If he forgot about that concept as a whole, then it's likely that we could still see Golden Frieza. It's very likely. But if they're trying to bring that same concept into the Tournament of Power, which would make sense. It's not that we can argue with that. It does make sense. Then the only question left would be, well, why weren't they exactly healed going into the tournament if that were the case? Why weren't they restored in some way, shape, or form? Can Whis not have the power to heal? If he could bring a baby to life or before its birth date, can't he just heal somebody? Or where's Dende and all of this? Where's nobody has a single sensu being left? You see what I'm saying? Like nobody took these kind of precautions. Then when you try to figure it out, that well, it is Goku in this case, so Goku is rarely ever prepared for anything. I would say it's especially like when it comes to stacking up on sensu beans. He really needs them. He always usually comes out on top. So it's like the precautions that we would think as fans that they would take probably won't happen. And it's because of that it all depends on whether or not they even forgot about that concept as a whole. But I think it would make sense if they did it. Would it make sense if they didn't? I don't think a lot of people would really care. They just want to see what Golden Frieza would be capable of in the Tournament of Power. And that's granted if he even shows up there, which I hope he does at this point.
No, I definitely agree, because having to build this up, I remember when Frieza was first announced to come back, the entire community was up in arms because they wanted to see Boo. And it's been a couple of weeks, and I'm pretty sure that fans have adjusted in getting used to the idea of seeing Frieza. And we saw his golden form in Dragon Ball Super Episode 94, and his golden form, his golden transformation was beautiful. It was beautiful. It looked godly in the way he did it. You know, the music, the way the camera angles were shot. And to me, I think that having Golden Frieza in this tournament would represent Universe 7 in having to be way too OP'd, because you have 2 Super Saiyan Blues, Ultimate Gohan, you have Piccolo who's stronger than Super Saiyan 2, you have Golden Frieza now. But what I wanted to ask you is, Frieza mentioned something in this episode, or like in the recent episode, where he said that his body was kind of like, you know, it kind of got soft while he was in hell. So with him having to, quote unquote, having to warm up against the assassins, do you think that, in your opinion, Frieza going into the Tournament of Power is either stronger than how he was before, weaker, or at least on the same page, or at least on the same caliber as he once was when he first came back in ROF? What do you think?
They could just pull a Gohan. That power was always there to begin with. But
he trained though. That was the thing.
Of course. But it was just his lack of actually fighting that allowed him to actually get back into that to begin with, right? So if Frieza, by nature, he's always been a tyrant, right? So he's always been strong. If he hasn't fought in quite some time, which is the case here, he would need a warm up, so that way he can get the blood flowing. That way he can get the, you know, like you said, I haven't bathed this body in blood for quite some time.
Yep.
He just needs that rush back. That's why he's so excited right now, and that's why he's itching for a fight right now. And that's, if anything, it's also why he was more than willing to take certain jabs at Goku at that point, because it's just in his nature. That's just how he is as a character, which I have to say, I think they did a great job at holding on to his character instead of just making him one of the good guys or something like that, or willing to help. Because right now, Frieza, the way he's being portrayed is he's being portrayed as the wild card. He could hurt you, or he could benefit you. He could hurt the team. He could benefit the team. We don't know. And obviously, we're assuming and we hope that he's going to benefit the team more than hurt them, right?
Right.
So with that being said, it's kind of like he is the wild card. I would say he's a little weaker. I would say a little weaker. It only makes sense
from ROF.
Based on that. But is it going to really matter? I mean, Golden Frieza is Golden Frieza, despite who he goes up against in the Tournament of Power. That it all depends on. First of all, it all depends whether or not he makes it. And if that's the case, I would personally like to see Golden Frieza in the Tournament of Power. I don't think there's any justifiable reason to take that away from him. If for any reason whatsoever, I don't think that's a justifiable reason to take that away from him. Especially if you went through this trouble of bringing him back into the series just for like one or two episodes. That just doesn't make sense to me. So we got rid of Boo, who is an icon, by the way, who is an actual piece of, like, he's an icon. But now we're getting rid of Frieza to bring in who, right? So it's like, no matter who you bring in to replace Frieza, it has to be somebody of equal marquee value. If that's not the case, then what's the point?
That's
right?
if he leaves, because again, guys, this video is being made before Dragon Ball Super Episode 96 spoilers. So for all we know, he could be on the team. He could either switch to Universe 4, or by some chance, maybe Sidra or someone else decides to take him out. Who knows? But that's what we're theorizing as of right now, because the direction seems to be a little weird, and the fact that I think that Emosh is right. I mean, why would you want to replace Frieza with someone lesser in value, in terms of value? I mean, people want to see, well, I wouldn't say everybody, but some people want to see Yamcha part of this, which I think they should not do that at all, because even though Yamcha is a part of the original Dragon Ball squad from Dragon Ball Z, hell, if you want, if you even want to go to Dragon Ball GT, whatever the case may be, Yamcha was always there. But I think that replacing Frieza by any means right now would be a detriment, because everyone right now in the community is so used to seeing him, especially now after episode 94 with Frieza transforming and him having to be so deceptive. You know, like as Goku was talking, he shot the guy, and then he had the excuse of saying, oops, well, my finger slipped, and then he hit Goku a couple of times, oops, my hand slipped. So he's very cunning and he's very deceptive. So what I wanted to ask you is, going into the Tournament of Power, let's say for example, if he does, you know, have his full powers intact, and if he does rejuvenate, or at least if he does go into this at full power, where do you see Frieza in terms of placement? Because if in your opinion, if you think that Frieza is weaker than how he was in ROF, what is his placement going to be in this tournament, having to go up against people like Hit, having to go up against people like Jiren? Because that right there is like a huge gap. There's a huge, like, you know, separation space between Frieza and those characters in terms of strength. So like, where do you see Frieza then?
Well, comparing him to other universe fighters, like especially top tier fighters, is just no contest, right? So I think what he has to offer for this team is the elements, like I said, he's a wild card. He has the elements of surprise. He's always been a dirty fighter, and it's caught a lot of people off guard plenty of times before, especially the top tier warriors. Goku and Vegeta are perfect examples of that, right? So I think that's what he has to add to this team, because this team is very predictable in terms of the way they fight. Gohan is a predictable fighter. We know when he's about to let his guard down. Goku does the same thing. Vegeta, we don't, I don't want to say Vegeta's predictable, but we know how he's going to approach the actual fight.
Right.
Always on the on the offense. As to where someone like Frieza can, you know, persuade you. He's very cunning. He can just, you know, 1 minute pretend to be on your side, the next minute he just come out of the blue and just smack you and just throw you out the ring. You know, I think that's what he has to offer to this team, is the element of surprise, which is something that this team is severely lacking in. Broshi, he doesn't exactly look like a formidable opponent, but he has some techniques like the Mafuba, the lightning flash attack, whatever you call that. Piccolo is someone who's just very knowledgeable, but again, he doesn't have the elements of surprise. We saw a few things against Gohan, which is cool to see, but overall, he just doesn't have the elements of surprise, the same elements of surprise that Frieza has, where he could just, you know, he could just make you feel like he's on your team, and then all of a sudden just stab you in the back, and it wouldn't be against the rules. As long as he doesn't kill anybody, he's good to go.
Now, that was what I was gonna ask you. Do you think that maybe if he remains in this tournament, he may get a little too full of himself and actually kill somebody? Because I really cannot see Frieza playing by the rules entirely. Maybe he may play by the rules maybe 20-30 minutes in, but even if he lasts that long, at some point, maybe that itch to wanting to feel someone's energy leave their body and having to kill them, I think it's gonna dawn upon him that maybe at some point he may try to kill someone, either as an accident, because that could happen. He may try to kill somebody, or at least he may kill somebody and he may say, well, oops, that was an accident or something like that, or maybe he not knowingly killed someone and gets himself disqualified. But in terms of like the structural foundation of him having to kill someone, do you think that that idea, that concept is still going to be embedded in his head, and going into this tournament seeing 70 other people and having to target at least one of them and killing them? Do you think that Frieza is going to have like that bloodlust once again, or is he fully going to play by the rules until the very end? What do you think?
I think, you know, sometimes he reminds me of Goku and Vegeta.
How?
In a way, where he becomes so thirsty for power. He becomes so thirsty to see what other people are capable of, especially when they're overconfident and they feel it like they've won the battle already. We've seen Frieza lower his guard too. How many times? We can go back to Dragon Ball Z, the RF arc. He was overconfident and he got wrecked by, you know, eventually he got wrecked by Vegeta. Vegeta came into the fight, that was it. And whether or not someone wants to say that was because of his stamina issues, he couldn't really maintain the golden form. Vegeta was already ahead of him at that point, and he had to resort to blowing up the Earth to actually take everybody down, right? Right. So from that, Frieza also reminds me of them in that sense. I could definitely see Frieza becoming full of himself, because he's always been that way. And not to take away from him, every character has a weakness, a flaw, and a flaw. So it makes sense. I see that definitely being a possibility. Do I see him killing anybody though? No. And while you were saying that, it's interesting because if this is the case where if you fall off the ring and you do get erased immediately, it doesn't really matter for Frieza at this point, because if he dies, he's erased from existence. He falls out from the tournament, he's erased from existence. So even then, theoretically, how would they even revive him if he doesn't exist anymore? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Remember, the Dragon Balls can't do that, and the only option then is the Super Dragon Balls. Even remember, we've seen it before. Goku mentioned it. Krillin's already died once or twice before. Yamcha's already died once or twice before. If they die again, I can't even use the Dragon Balls to resurrect them because they've died too many times. So if they die again, that's it. So theoretically speaking, if Frieza were to get knocked off the ring and he gets erased, he technically isn't coming back anyway. Theoretically,
right.
Based on the history that Dragon Ball has given us.
Yes.
So I think it's definitely going to be interesting to see how Frieza handles it. I think I see him torturing people and really beating people and being brutal towards people. Yes, I don't see him killing anybody. Maybe having them knock on death's door at most, and then maybe he might be penalized for that or something like that, or maybe it might cause for his teammates to get thrown out of sync because they're focused. They have to stop and tell him, Frieza, just throw him out of the fucking ring.
Yeah,
and then someone ends up getting thrown out because of that. And it creates a big it just creates a big mess in the team. And this is why I say where Frieza at this point is a wild card. He could benefit them, but also he could hurt them as well.
Now, I think his major flaw is going to be his golden form. I think that at a certain point, Frieza may dominate. And not saying that he's going to have the greatest power, but I think that he is going to dominate in terms of what he presents in his golden form. But at some point, I really feel as if since he wasn't accustomed into using that golden form often, it's going to affect his pressure. It's gonna affect the way his body functions, and he's gonna power down, and he's gonna fight and continue and possibly end off the Tournament of Power in his final form. I really can't see the concept of Golden Frieza having to last throughout the entire tournament. Maybe at a certain point, perhaps 30 minutes in or something like that, Frieza's dominating until his golden form dies down. And once his golden form dies down and he reverts back to his final form, the only people that are going to be aware of this is Goku and Vegeta, because they're going to know, like, oh crap, that was your weakness before and it came back to haunt you. So then it's like now at a certain point, instead of looking after Frieza because he was doing such a good job, they may actually have to end up even protecting him and not seeing him get thrown out, because even though he isn't in his golden form, he's still vulnerable. In which I do think that his golden form, unless somehow they change it and maybe he, tells them all that, ever since he's been down there in hell, maybe his body's been more adjusted to the concept of adding more pressure or something like that, because it's kind of hard to see that, because in this latest episode, he came out and he said, well, my body's gone soft. So what does that tell you about the overwhelming pressure that's going to be added onto his body? Is that going to play a critical role in downgrading him during the Tournament of Power? And I as I said before, once he goes up against people like Hit, people like Jiren, I don't see him surviving. Perhaps as he's fighting other people, possibly Moscow's fighters, Kitara's fighters, if he has any, whatever the case may be, I could see Frieza holding his own until that golden power pretty much drains him down. And once he powers down into his final form, as you said earlier, that may give Frost the advantage, having to fight off, a tired Frieza, or maybe even Kale having to step in and fighting him. It's going to be a sight to see. But any final words here before we go in terms of Frieza in the Tournament of Power having to utilize his golden form?
Well, I think if he utilizes it to the extent that you're saying, then his job is done. If he can perform early on and really help the team get ahead early on, and even if that form does run out eventually, then he's served his purpose. His job is done, and he's done well. I will say, though, that it would suck if he were to lose against Frost. I think it would suck for that. I think it would suck if he were to lose against a Saiyan, for example, from Universe 6.
Right.
If he got ringed out by a Saiyan from Universe 6, that would be very interesting. That would drive him crazy, I think. But even then, he's going to be erased anyway. So it's like, what's the point after that? But that's pretty much all I have to say. I agree with you for the most part. But as long as he does, if they're going to go to this extent, once again, to bring him back and utilizing him and bring him back a marquee, value character, then do it right, utilize him properly, and let him get to the tournament. Let him wreck face early on, and even if he does run out of power or steam, then he served his purpose at that point.
It's going to be very interesting seeing Frieza in the upcoming spoilers, because not much is known as of right now. But post your comments down below, guys. Do you guys believe that his golden form is going to be his downfall? Perhaps, maybe he's going to burn right through his energy and perhaps power down. Do you guys think that, in fact, they're going to change it and he's going to last, throughout the entire Tournament of Power in his golden form? Thank you guys for watching. As always, if you guys are Dragon Ball fans, be sure to go on ahead and slap that like button if you guys enjoyed it. If you guys cannot wait for this tournament to begin finally after many months of waiting, slap that like button, guys. Be sure to subscribe for more news, information, and updates. And be sure to also subscribe to EmoshIsLive. I will link his channel down below, guys. Thank you all for watching. As always, post your comments down below, and we'll be seeing you guys in the comment section. Take it easy, guys. Peace.